How's it going, Kryptonians? Welcome to my Superman and Lois breakdown and review. The time has finally come for me to talk about this, for us to finally all talk about this together. I'll be getting into some things you might have missed, some Easter eggs here and there because there was a lot of them, some details I liked, some details I didn't like, of course, and just, yeah, like this is one of those videos, but also quite the first impression video because there's so many bullet points I took. There's so many because obviously this episode was much longer than your typical CW length episode, but expect a Boba blabber sesh. I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below, not only on the episode but also on top of my thoughts. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you disagree with me on some things, but let's get into this. So let's start right off the bat. One thing I feel like they did really well is to rope in viewers at the very beginning. And don't forget, this is a premiere episode. I always expect the first episode, maybe the first couple of episodes to any season, to have quite a wow factor to it. And I feel like what they did with introducing this kind of montage, if you will, of Clark's life when he was younger, talking about his most vivid memories, such as the pod crash. We've seen it before, but it's like a new lens put over it. It's like, okay, cool. Because we've seen Tyler Hoechlin's Superman in the Arrowverse for quite a while now, but we saw him and met him for the first time when he was already Superman. We never got all of this context, so seeing it done quite faithfully to traditionalist canon as well is always a nice thing to see as a Superman fan, of course. It speeds through to other feelsy moments. We had a Smallville Clark, not the Tom Welling Clark, but still a Smallville Clark. We had Jonathan Kent's death through the heart attack and how that impacted Clark. They whisked all the way to Metropolis. We see Superman saving a car, like the kind of greeny car from the Action Comics. Yeah, it's literally, you're seeing it on screen right now. Very, very similar, and this is what I mean, especially with the very classical Superman look here, and the fact that he had the Y fronts on, and his response to the kid was like, thanks, my mum made it for me. It may be corny for some, but if you are a Superman fan, like that, despite what you think of the look of it or whatever, you can understand why they did it, and it looked really good in my opinion. It's a part of the comic history, it's part of the character's history, and they decided to put it in Tyler Hoechlin's little montage of his life so far at the beginning of this first episode of the show. And yeah, as a fan, that's kind of eye candy fan service you love to see. And another thing with Tyler Hoechlin, like, I feel like I've been advocating for him since day one. I just feel like he nails Clark even better than he does Superman, if that makes sense. I felt like this, I believe, the first time he was introduced with the newspaper stand in that Supergirl episode when he was on the phone to somebody at the planet. Was it Perry? I don't know, but he always nailed Clark, and here he was just fumbling his way on this first day on the job where he was kind of shadowing Lois, and they just had that little spark. It was very well done. But not only did we get the history of Clark becoming Superman, and then obviously the other things that I'm going to kind of skip over, the proposal, and then the kids, but we also got to see the kids, and how it's like, oh yeah, kids, and it's like, oh yeah, but they couldn't be any more different from each other. So first of all, we have Jonathan, the kind of high school, you know, football quarterback kind of guy, the perfect kid, or seemingly so. Always happy, always smiling, as Clark said. And we also see him throw that football, and it literally bursts the rope. So I want to talk about this later. I'm not being nitpicky, I'm just pointing out that this episode for now kind of wants you to believe that, oh, it's actually twist Jordan who has the powers. But I'm sorry, that tie swings rope wasn't on its last thread, and that football when he was like 6 or whatever age he was when he completely decimated the rope definitely had super strength behind it. So we'll get into that a little bit later because I found that very interesting. But as for Jordan growing up, things were a lot more challenging. There are tantrums, night terrors. A year ago, he was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder. So we're at a point now in Superman's life, especially after Crisis, because during Crisis, they literally had a baby. The baby for the first time. Then bam! Crisis over, 2 teenage boys. Like, so now we're at the point in Superman's life where he's having to try and juggle all of this, and he's doing it to the best of his ability. And as the whole general concept for this show is about Clark being Superman and also balancing that life with his kids and his wife Lois, as a concept, it's still interesting, it's intriguing. I'm definitely looking forward to see where this goes, especially after the developments with Jonathan and Jordan, but Jordan in particular. I'm still not mega sold on it though, and that's not me saying I'm not mega sold on the show, just like the whole status quo with the kids as of right now. Even though at the end of the episode things ended a lot more healthier, but I'm more on about the evil Hayden Christensen, Anakin Skywalker, Revenge of the Sith look that we kept getting from Jordan. It's that kind of thing that I hope the teenage angst doesn't last all the freaking time. And trust me, I get it. It's relevant to the story. I just preferred, which I'm sure we're heading, the much more happier Jordan at the end. Jonathan and him were intrigued about Superman. We have thousands of questions. Within worlds and scopes of TV shows like this as well, I like the world building aspects we get with just little details that you can easily miss, like those TV news reports of Superman that we saw where he was assisting in the shuttle launch. But we also had Superman handling, and this is a little bit of an Easter egg I suppose, an explosion at Ace Chemical. Not Ace Chemicals, but Ace Chemicals. So as a Batman fan, of course, I always appreciate little bits like that. But yeah, this episode was really popping with stuff left, right, and center of meta things, references, all kinds of things like that. We even had Jordan playing freaking Injustice. I can't remember what Injustice. By the way, he was playing Injustice with DC characters. One of them was Superman, and he wasn't a big fan of Superman, which made things a little bit awkward. But now we hit present day, where Clark is literally in Metropolis. They have 2 teenage boys. He's married to the most famous journalist in the world, and yet he's still trying to make the world safer for the people that he loves, which is literally the whole, I guess, motto for the show. Family, wife, but also, yeah, I'm that guy who saves everything and everyone practically all the time. It's really hard. And very fittingly, we have a nuclear reactor melting down. And this is where we have Lois's father, General Lane, call on Superman for help. We had that little cool gadget. Lois had one as well later in the episode. And it's interesting to see this kind of relationship. This is what I do like about the premise of this show, and how where we are at in Superman's life isn't like at this stage, too early here. We're at a very established stage. Like, Superman has been saving the world for quite some time. Everyone knows who he is. And the relationship between General Lane and him isn't like perfect. You can tell that. I like that kind of subtle, under the conversation kind of disapproval General Lane still has of his daughter probably marrying Clark in the first place. And that line later that General Lane says to Lois makes that seem all the more apparent when he was trying to rub it in that, I warned you, if you'd be marrying Clark, you'd be marrying Superman. But yeah, that superhero landing and that scene, it was all very cinematic. And obviously this nuclear power plant failure thing that kept happening with the cracks and then the message, it is very much so a part of the bigger, and I'm guessing, season baddie. I don't know if that ending baddie, if you will, Mr. Captain Luthor, is going to be the overall season bad. We're going to have to wait and see there. But certainly from even at the very beginning of the episode when Clark was talking about this, I was very intrigued. The fact that just like Oyster Creek, same crack in the tower, both were man-made. Now, at the time, and from the trailers, it was pretty obvious who it was going to be, but the interesting twist underneath this, which I'm sure will be related to Crisis in some way or another, the fact that it's Luthor, it's like you could argue, oh, like, of course, Lex Luthor, of course, but it's like, I didn't necessarily expect them to do that. Everyone was thinking it could be somebody else. They thought it was the Master Chief, the Doomslayer guy, but really, it's lo and behold, a different kind of Lex. But this gives us another taste of the status quo of Clark Kent, or the Kent/Superman lifestyle. As soon as he arrives through the door, we had basically Lois filling him in on what he needs to do because of what he missed. Like, Jonathan's got some news, but also, oh yeah, Jordan needs apologizing to because you missed his therapy session. I really appreciated what General Lane, the line they decided to give him, because I know General Lane is meant to be the guy who kind of is like, the party pooper, like, what, he doesn't approve of Clark. I get it, but he was very rational. And it offers a very interesting perspective, which I think is very on board with what I'm just saying. He says, I warned you that you may have fallen in love with Clark Kent, but you married Superman. Superman doesn't get to have a normal life, no matter how much you want one for him or yourself. And as much as I don't want to be like that guy, it's very true. And that's one of the sad, tragic aspects, I think, of Clark Kent/Superman as a, not a human being, but as a character. It's very painful. Think about it. You have this weight of the world on your shoulders. Jesus, can you imagine? You're a nice guy. You love a woman. You have kids. You need to make time for them. This is why I really am on board with the show, by the way. But then you have a whole world out there. Without any moment, how are you not going to feel guilty when you're cracking open a beer from the fridge at 6 o'clock, where it's meant to be home time, when there's a nuclear reactor melting down in some country, and you're just like, no, technically, we're on home time right now. I can't do it. Like that would be overwhelming. So what I feel like what they pointed out, that line from General Lane, was very important because I feel like it goes to articulate what I struggle to articulate, where some people were getting what I was saying in my previous videos about the line from Lois saying about how this family needs Superman more than the world does, and how I wasn't mega on board of that, even though I understood what the show was saying. I feel like, whilst I agree with her, the family is the first principle, this also offers the other side from General Lane. It's like, as much as Lois is right in some ways, it's like when an immovable object meets an unstoppable force. This is a conundrum. He will always want to be there for his family, yet he can't guarantee that. Oh yeah, and can't believe I forgot to mention this earlier, but that scene where Clark has to, you know, sort out that first nuclear reactor situation, it was really, really interesting, and I found it very, very, very cool, to be honest. Now, a revisiting kind of debate between Lois and Clark this episode, of course, was about telling the kids, because Lois makes a good point of how his parents told him about his heritage when he was 6. Clark argues that was kind of different. He lived on a farm. He also had powers. And I do get both sides. That's the interesting thing here as well. It's like there are good points on both sides. It's like Clark on one point is like, just if one mess up, they tell one person the wrong thing, my whole secret is exposed to the whole world. But from Lois's perspective, I think she just wants everyone in on it. It would do favors for the family, making sure there's no secrets, even though it has a little bit of an immediate fallout because Jordan didn't like, well, I don't think they both like the fact that this was kept from them their whole lives. But also in this conversation they had, we also had another interesting reference where Lois said, "You don't think that Jonathan's got something?" And Clark replied saying that the test at the fortress said it was unlikely. And at this moment, even though the episode leaves you off with both brothers kind of talking to each other, and Jordan's just like, well, you know, the powers, he's like, it's fine, it's fine. If anything, this means I'm legit at football. Like, he doesn't seem to care about it. But I really don't think it's over there for Jonathan. He's just going to get powers at some point later. I'm sorry, Jordan. That might mean that you're not so legit at football. But also, like, come on. You saw that football burst that rope. Like, I know Jordan's the one who's manifested his abilities, his Kryptonian abilities first. But this definitely doesn't discount Jonathan, especially when the only reference to the Fortress of Solitude tests for the kid's DNA for possibly presenting superpowers was done on Jonathan, and the Fortress said it was unlikely but not negative. That basically means he's got potential, but it's just, will it appear? We don't know. Jordan's appeared first, and we'll get Jonathan's eventually. I just think they wanted to throw the interesting twist into the mix of the fact that, oh, it's not the one you thought it would be. It's actually the one who has the most potential for a lot of issues. Now, another kind of subplot that they're cooking up, which I think is definitely going to echo throughout the whole season, is the fact that we had layoffs at the Daily Planet. I found it very interesting that they laid off Clark Kent, one of the Daily Planet's best reporters. I know he's not Lois Lane level, but Clark Kent is quite the household name up there. This is all stemming from Morgan Edge, because he brought the Daily Planet. We found out the whole thing that was going on at Smallville with the reverse mortgage offers and stuff towards the end of the episode was because Lana didn't realize that her bank had been secretly acquired by another company, which was, you know, the breadcrumbs ultimately lead up to Morgan Edge once again. Now, what is his interest in terms of a whole bunch of farms in the small town in Kansas? Who knows right now, but you can for sure tell with the beginning, middle, and end references to this Mr. Morgan Edge that there is a lot more to him than meets the eye. I found the scene when he got the news of Martha, his mother, dying was a very touching scene. It really got me. I feel like Tyler Hoechlin did a really good job there, because I feel like we've seen acting range from Tyler Hoechlin so far, but not an awful lot. I'm not saying he's a bad actor, I'm just saying maybe he's just good at what we've seen him in so far, but I haven't seen like a whole mad range in terms of his appearances in the Arrowverse thus far. But then when we saw him have to obviously really get into the mood for like Martha Kent dying, that was, yeah, it was done very, very, very well. But either way, with Martha Kent having bit the dust, so to speak, we now have the family in Smallville. So the first voice that his brain just picked up was Lana Lang's from the past, and it seems that in this continuity, Lana never knew of Clark's powers. They made that more than apparent, where they were talking about I thought initially she could have been joking and jesting, and that she did know, but no, it was very clear that there was tales of the past where they miraculously survived or something like that, and they just never understood how they didn't have a scratch on them. And Clark was just like, And that's because he never told her. But it seems in this, Clark kept his mouth shut a lot more than what Smallville kind of let on. Now, along with these scenes, we got a lot more characters, regulars who will be in the show from here on out. We got Lana's husband, Kyle. He seems to be a hybrid of a bit of a jerk, but also a nice guy. He feels like people have just run out of Smallville and this, that. Like, I feel like I understand the character. I feel like eventually they're going to paint him out to be like a really cool dude. He already helped out in this episode, especially later with the Heat Vision event and how he's a firefighter, and you know, Clark thanked him for the helping the boys at that time. So ultimately I think his heart's in the right place, but he's quite the advocate for Morgan Edge with what he's bringing to Smallville, and I don't blame him, because Kyle seems to be like a small town kind of private business kind of guy, and he likes that this new Morgan Edge is bringing prosperity and business to Smallville as something that it desperately actually needs because of the crises of the past with the farms and whatnot. So yeah, interesting there. We also met their kid, Sarah, who Jordan 100 billion thousand gazillion % has a crush on. This led to the scene in the barn where they were trying to fix the Wi-Fi or whatever. The pipes landed on the kids, and I like how Jonathan tried to shield. This is the thing about Jonathan. He also seems to be a bit of a jerk brother, but also a nice brother who looks out for his brother at the same time. So it's like the older brother kind of jab affection kind of approach. So in this moment, we saw that he literally sacrificed himself for Jordan, but it turns out that later that Jordan was actually the one who saved him. And yeah, so I wonder if, because I do strongly believe that Jonathan has got these powers, but they're just not manifested as much as Jordan's yet. But I wonder if the pipes would have landed on Jonathan. Would that have actually have hurt him a lot more? I don't know. Eventually, though, all of this leads to more investigation from the kids. The whole aspect of how are they fine after the pole incident, and why stay out of the barn kind of thing, which is when they find the trapdoor and then they find the pod. Now, when Jordan touches it, as this really cool response to him, it kind of echoes, but it also gave him this kind of jewel or like crystal. First I thought it was red, but it wasn't. I thought it was like some kind of red kryptonite. God forbid you give that to him, because that would make him even more angsty. But no, really, they didn't reference what happened to this. I mean, he came storming out, like waving this thing, but what was it? The pod gave it to him. Like, you could argue it's just like an interface thing to use at the Fortress of Solitude, like a almost key drawer where you could get different keys. But I just wonder if this has ever been taken out before, if Clark is going to say, it's never given that to me before, responded to me with that. Maybe it was designed that if Kal-El ever had offspring, to just respond to them. Who knows? But I'm pretty sure we didn't find out, and I'm sure we will. I found the confrontation and reveal scene fairly interesting, because how really are you going to handle this? I suppose in one way, I don't know, we had that moment where the glasses was being taken off. I was like, please don't let this be the only thing, because I get it, comic book logic, but he takes it off and then we're supposed to be like, whoa, I've got a dad? Like, yours? Okay. Yeah, so they didn't just do that. They showed, of course, that he could lift the car. Towards the end of the episode, we had Superman arriving at that nuclear facility, and we had the villain taunting him, saying that he's wearing lead, and, you know, I know everything that there is to know about the last son of Krypton, and all of that. Very interestingly, these details do highlight a clue or two as to where he's from, saying, in terms of how he responds, nowhere now, my world was destroyed, but somehow I managed to survive. Eventually arrived here where I learned you were here too. So I think the only logical conclusion we can theorize for now is that after Crisis on Infinite Earths, somehow another Lex survived, one who's, well, for better or for worse, obviously had a history with Superman, but is it worse than other ones? Who knows, because this one seems to be quite kitted out. So this Lex Luthor has had his world destroyed, so that's kind of a cool parallel to him and Superman, because his reality, I'm guessing, collapsed, so he is the last of his universe. I don't know how this works, to be honest, especially post-Crisis. I'm looking forward to see what excuses they give there. And I do think, even though it's borderline unoriginal in an extent, to just be like, oh, Lex, even though that's kind of really cool having Lex as a potential first season villain in a way, I guess you have to bear in mind, like, Morgan Edge as well and whatever else they may do there, but it's like an interesting circumstance of a Lex. It's not his Lex, it's another Lex, it's one who probably still would love to see a Superman die. On the other side of this, we had that bonfire party that Jordan was invited to. Now this could have ended in a very bad way, like, you know, the boys. We had that, like, fake daydream of Homelander imagining what his heat vision would do to all those people in the crowd. Yeah, it could have quite literally easily have gone that way. Very convenient that it didn't. And then I found the kiss really awkward, but I understand why they did it. I think evidently Sarah will be interested in one of the brothers. I wouldn't be surprised though if it isn't Jordan. And like, even though Jonathan doesn't want anything to do with double-crossing his brother in that way, I really wouldn't find it any more predictable. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if somehow Sarah and him get romantic and it isn't Jordan, and then that allows Jordan to get angsty with his powers even more because his brother's going off of the... I don't know. I really don't think his brother's enough of a jerk to do that, but what if it happens naturally? I don't know. This is like speculation territory now. I think the only thing I would change, even though I like the actors, I like the kids, I like what they're doing here, is I would say dial down the Revenge of the Sith Anakin face just a little bit, because the very next scene after that was them in the kitchen talking about the fact he had heat vision, and it started up with a close-up of his face again, being like, it's too on the nose, for me, at least. You may disagree, you may be like, well, I get it, it's fine, but I just felt like it was just, as I said, if I was directing, I would have just been like, tone it down just a little bit, just a little bit. Back to the fight side of things, this was all entertaining. We had Lex mocking Superman, saying he isn't as fast as he thought he was. They took it to the skies. It then went into space with a little battle and struggle going on there. And then eventually he gets shanked, stabbed with kryptonite, and it's kind of pushed off to fall back to Earth. Now, the only issue I have about this, it was really cool. I love any shot of like if Superman has to dramatically fall like that. It was awesome. But it's just the ending scene with Lex. So I'm just going to jump to that ending scene where Master Chief walks onto his ship and says that he needs to improve tactile function and speed if he's going to end this. The ship then points out, the AI on there says that we'll need more kryptonite. That was the last of your supply. Lex is like, well then I'm going to have to go and get some. But it's like, if you're going to finish this, why didn't you finish it when you were right there? Like, I don't get it. Like, he stabbed him, he pushed him off to Earth. Why not accompany him down and just keep making sure he's dead? Are we supposed to believe this was really the typical villain overestimating that Clark? Did he assume that he was just going to die? Lex should know better than this. I don't know. I just found it a little bit inconvenient that he went back to the ship saying, well, I'm going to need to increase tactical function and speed if I'm going to end this. But it's like you could have ended it. Clark was knocked out from the stabbing with kryptonite poisoning and God knows what else happening in that moment. Where were you? Why didn't you accompany him to Earth? Convenient? Just to continue the story? I think so. I know this may be nitpicking for some people, but literally, if you have a villain who is saying, I'm going to finish this, he's still going to go after Superman, when he gave him the little gentle push to go back to Earth and crash back into the orbit, why didn't he accompany him and just make sure he was dead? I don't know. Because it would have been there, over and there and then, maybe. But lastly, very ending of the episode, as I kind of just went over a couple of minutes ago, we have a new Lex Luthor. He's bald. It's kind of obvious that it's Luthor, because they said Captain Luthor, but it technically might not be Lex, but he's bald, but he's also black, so that's new as well. Is he a survivor from Crisis? We don't know exactly how this is going to fit in, but I'm intrigued by it. I didn't expect it to be Lex. I really didn't. Seriously. I thought it'd be anyone else. I thought it'd just be a typical premier villain that they were just gonna get some tanky guy, Master Chief guy to battle Superman. Overall, guys, the episode, I enjoyed it. I think it is a solid upgrade from the formulaic approach that the CW has. While at the same time, I don't want to say and get ahead of myself by saying this show is amazing, it's absolutely everything. Oh my god, the CW has evolved. Premiere episodes are meant to be impressive. I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade because I'm not saying it wasn't decent. But I want to see if they keep this up for the next 5 episodes, 6 episodes. I expect the first couple of episodes to be just as strong as this one. I didn't find it perfect. It still had a few issues for me, but I still feel like it's a very solid episode to start off a brand new season of television on Superman and Lois, introducing something we haven't really properly seen before, with Clark balancing the home and Superman life with 2 teenage boys presenting powers, in one of them at least. It's interesting for sure. I just don't want to call it perfect. It was good though. It was good. But I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below, everyone. Did you really enjoy this? Did you think it was perfect? Did you think it was really good like I did? But it just had a couple of gripes here and there. I mean, like everything should and does. I mean, at the end of the day, nothing is perfect. But like this video if you did enjoy it, as I keep saying. Subscribe if you aren't subscribed, because a lot of you aren't. So make sure you do, to make sure you never miss out on a future review on Superman and Lois. Check out my links in the top pinned comments where you can follow me on Twitter, join my Discord server, and a bunch of other interesting links But that is everything. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. And I'll see you Kryptonians in the next video. Goodbye.